Dave Mader coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews. And today we are talking about the episode Broken Pieces. I'm joined by a fabulous panel today. Two new guests we haven't had on the show. Well, in one case, for somebody in a long time, and somebody brand new in Tyrone. So I will start with the person in the top right-hand corner of your screen, Jaemeel Robinson, who I did the very first Live Long in podcasts with many years ago. I think going about 6 years ago. Jaemeel and I, longtime Star Trek enthusiasts. I met Jaemeel through ball hockey in the Kevin Smith enthusiast league many years ago, and we still are part of that and crossover. So welcome, Jaemeel.
Thank you.
And in the bottom right hand corner of your screen is a good friend of mine, Tyrone Fonseca. Welcome, Tyrone.
Hello.
So we're bringing us together today to talk about this pretty loaded episode. I'd say there was a lot to unpack here, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. It seemed like the reception to this episode was good, but I want to just check in with both of you since you are coming in, episode 8 here to talk about it. I've talked to you both a little bit about it, but just how you're feeling that the show is going so far overall. Let's start with you, Jaemeel. And we'll go to Tyrone next.
I think that my opinions might be a little bit. I'm still forming it as the series is going on. I think it's going to be a matter of what the complete work of art is going to be at the end, as opposed to the journey that we're seeing. There's some good episodes and some disappointing episodes.
Mm-hmm.
This one particularly was a little disappointing.
Okay.
But overall, I'm just glad to have more Star Trek. Discovery, I still partially enjoy because it still has Star Trek in this name.
Right.
So therefore, as long as the franchise keeps going in some form or function, I'm going to be at least a little bit satisfied.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's come back to that. And Tyrone, how are you enjoying the show?
Again, just sort of happy to have the Trek on the screen. I am enjoying the show. There are some things that have driven me nuts about it. Just sort of more design stuff, that kind of thing. Like the uniforms looking a little bit like semi-pro cosplay. That kind of thing's made me a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a certain earnestness to it that sometimes is a little too. But I do. It's funny. I'm sort of also like readjusting my expectations because like I expected this storyline to wrap up in the season, and it's just been you feel like it's slow, and now we're at like 8 of 10 episodes. There's no way that they're going to wrap all this shit up in 2 more episodes. So I'm readjusting that. But I mean, it's nice to see how they're handling the sort of like bringing everybody back and the whole you can never kind of go home kind of thing, which is I like those aspects of it. Yeah, I mean, hell, it is one of my favorite Thursday things at the moment.
Yeah, me too. I think the fact that this show is one long narrative, one story over 10 episodes, like I definitely feel that the pacing sometimes is like it's just a little frustrating. And then sometimes sometimes it's too slow, and then other times it like rapidly catches up with itself. And I felt like there was a lot of that going on in this episode where coming off of the episode with Riker and Troy, coming into this one, it was like, okay, and now we're going to move the story along. And we come in with this like big scene right at the beginning, which is set on the planet of Iaea, if I'm saying that right. The grief world, they caption it as. So there's been this whole Romulan plot. We haven't really had a good understanding of the Romulans' motivations other than they're against synthetic life and artificial life. But and because it's going to destroy things, and that's all we've really known. So they come in really hot right on the bat on the in this first scene here with the world of Aiea and Commodore O. So Commodore O, if we could just pause on her for a moment, is she a Romulan or is she a Vulcan or is she
She's
both?
both.
Half.
She's both. She's half.
Okay, and when did
She's havoc.
she's what T'Pol almost was or was going to
Mm.
be back in Enterprise. Okay, so they're talking about. She's given this exposition. She's given this long narrative. Like long ago, they fought against it, and they created this place as a warning. And she's got the Jat Fosh organized, or I guess Jat Fosh recruits, because it seems like they're all kind of new to the organization. Maybe they're Tal Shiar sort of moving up into this upper circle, I suppose. And they're like, if you touch this, most of you are going to go mad, but those who survive, that's who we need. That's the kind of person we need to fight this war. Okay, so this was crazy. This whole thing was wild. Impressions? Here, let's bring up a photo. I just want to talk about show that the admonishment, because it becomes a very important thing in this in this episode. Yeah, I'm just going to go full screen for a moment with that. So first of all, cool production design, I'd say, but the first thing I was kind of left wondering was, are the Jat Fosh all female, like the Kawat Malat are?
Which is what I was questioning as well, but I didn't really see any information about that as well. So,
well, all the recruits were female, so my guess is maybe that all the leadership of it, because I mean you've got the brother running around too, right?
Yeah, Narek. And did Narek touch this thing and get this vision too? That's kind of something we don't quite know. Or did he just kind of take his sister's word for it?
Yeah. She seems like a bully.
She does. She's not the nicest type. She's very driven. A little bit of a mustache twirling villain.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
But yes. I take that as because she has that vision and therefore she feels so motivated and passionate about it, like it must be done. So that can kind of explain her reaction, her determination towards this cause, her drivenness.
Yeah. Here, I'll just, so we can all see each other again. I'll just make this smaller. But yeah, like this whole thing still is I need more. I need more than what they're giving me so far in terms of like what the motivation is here, because they're saying, okay, long time ago, androids somewhere like rose up and nearly wiped out life, but some other species stopped them, right?
So from what I'm here, from what rewatching it recently was, there was a society and they created synthetic life, or were involved with it. Synthetic life rose up, and there was this humongous calamity, world changing, end of the world scenario, and therefore this society created this memory ledge thing, like this what's it called again?
The repository or warning.
Exactly. Yeah. As a warning to ensure that it never happens again.
Because all this has happened before.
And all of it will happen again. It's shades of Battlestar. So so whoever left, so the Romulans just happened to or some Romulans at some point in history found this, and sort of took up the cause. Is that what
we get is, not only did some Romulans find it, they also embedded it into their like history, like their old like culture, and then at the same time, whomever moved the planets around to create this like this marker for them to find that planet, to find that information. So it's like it's so embedded into like the Romulan culture, right? So that's what we kind of find out, but we don't know when people stop believing it, because some members do, but some people don't.
Well, they've turned it into a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Because I guess after the Jat Fosh was formed, they started pulling it out of official things. So, it goes from being something that's real to something that is being a tale told by your grandfather or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I guess, like, it seems like these are not very smart people, like from like from what I can tell. Like the characters themselves, like
Mm.
they're not really looking at things very objectively. But I guess if you like were downloaded quickly all this like horrific imagery and whatever that well we see the effect. Most of them want to shoot
Themselves in the
themselves in
heads,
the
yeah.
head. They were already like stuff with the rock is the best one for me. Like it's just like it's
They
just
can't get to the blaster quick enough. It's like the Rock will do.
Yeah.
the rock will do. The other one was just like rip my own face off or whatever. That was
So is it because the intense emotion that
Yeah.
they dealt with was all like hit at the same time, and therefore they were kind of able to like just fell apart like mentally,
Yeah, the
right?
fear overwhelmed them to the
Yeah.
point where they ended themselves, kind of thing.
yeah. And what's so are we should we more worried about these people who are able to handle this? Like so there's three people standing at the end of this scene. Narissa and her aunt who I don't
Right, yeah.
can't remember her name. But she's the one who later becomes assimilated. And so and so then we
And
flash
she's
yeah
that specialist in Romulan myth
right
and history, yeah. So
yeah
it comes back to that apocryphal thing.
yeah I thought she had a completely different job, but she's also Tal Shiar / Jacques Foch as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Right.
she was trying to join the cause as well, at the same time as her niece.
Right. And they leave this scene saying, okay, well, what do we do? And we have to start on Mars, which is an allusion to the Mars attack that they kind of derailed everything. So this is happening around the same time as the Romulan supernova,
Yes.
right? Like, or the impending supernova that's going to come and wipe out the Romulan people. See, and like I'm like, this is dumb. Like what? Like just like why? Like like Picard said, why would they sabotage their own rescue effort? But they did.
So,
Well,
okay, my understanding is the supernova occurs, and therefore the Federation assistance project starts, which includes the Mars operation, which involves a huge amount of synths being used.
Right.
Then at the same time, you have this. Uh, they need more members, and they need these members to be able to pull off the attack on Mars. All right, so it's like one after the other. They don't really do a good job of kind of detailing the separation of events, a domino being falling one after the other. It just kind of seems to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a synthetic workforce at the shipyard, because that's what it was, the Utopia shipyard, right?
Right. So the supernova didn't happen like overnight. Like they kind of knew it was coming for a good number of years. And so that's is where Picard says, okay, we need to get in there. We need to save them. Because the Romulans won't allow ships with like weaponry into their space, it was like you had to build basically a civilian fleet. So that's part of the reason the Utopia Planitia was like ramped up and why they needed all these synth workforce in order to help build all these extra ships to save the Romulans. And I think because I've kind of looked into like this prequel comic book and things like that. And so like my understanding is like Geordie LaForge was kind of like leading that effort on building the ships.
Oh, Geordie.
Yeah. But I don't think we haven't seen him yet. And we don't even know if we know he's alive because Jabon references him earlier on in the season, but where he's at, what he's doing, we don't know. But yeah, so they started this like Narissa and the aunt. They all like they must have hacked the synths to attack everybody, which was going to make everyone in the Federation stop making them, I guess, or stop the development of it. Whatever they were trying to slow it down. But the part I'm trying to figure out is was the fact that stopped the rescue effort sort of an unintentional side effect, or was that part of the Jacques Foch's plan too?
Well, when you get extremists, they don't necessarily think beyond the initial impact, right?
Is this
They
like
might
needs
not
of the
have
many?
cared. Yeah,
need-
kind of a needs of the many thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're thinking about what is best for them in terms to implement their plan, and
Mm.
having a Romulan civilization dependent on the Federation isn't in their best interests, and furthering that alienation and separatist type of mentality allows them to continue to work in both areas as opposed to having to deal with the massive you know force, because then the Federation knows more about Romulan culture, and
Mhm.
more information starts getting rolled out and be readily available, and it's
Yeah,
harder to
they
work in the
do.
shadows.
Yeah, they do go. They do take some effort to talk about how secretive the culture is, and how it's so
Everything's a secret.
closed, and yeah, everything's a
Even
secret,
their
right?
names.
So
Their names are
yeah,
secrets.
they got like 3 secret names.
3 secret names, not even just 2.
Yeah.
It's just everything about their society is a secret. Um, okay, so then we flash to Narissa in present day on the Borg cube. She's talking to our unconscious aunt there and saying she was kind of, wasn't all there. Maybe wasn't completely sane before this, and didn't handle it very well after the fact. Maybe, but because she was assimilated, that like her trauma from this broke the Borg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does that track well for you guys? Like,
So, what was the impact of Hugh's individualism to the collective, right?
Yeah.
So, think of that on a bigger scale, with this information being downloaded into the collective and how it would impact them. That knowledge, I don't know. It's very
Well.
taking a lot of liberties, and just like we're supposed to just nod our heads and say okay, but I didn't like it too much.
Well, I mean, Hughes. I think the Borg firewalled Hughes cube too, right? To stop the spread of individuality as well. So I think the situations are kind of the same.
where
Like it just went virus,
yeah,
close off.
it's possible. Yeah, you're right, because one bad drone can have this sort of effect. We've seen this before, so I guess that makes sense. But it's a little, I don't know. Like, I just need to understand more about this. I don't know if we will get to understand more about how these visions change you. Like, what the effect it had on Girardi, of course, was pretty extreme, and we'll get to that. But yeah, like it just like the whole board went poof, and this broke, and then the Romulans were able to come in and take this over and turn it into what it was.
So I have a problem with this, and we'll get to it when we get to Borg Queen 7 later on. But let's put a bookmark, and we'll come back to it.
Yeah, the last thing that happens before the opening credits is that Narissa's like, "Where's that Elnor? Where's that?" I think she calls him the freak. Where's
Mhm.
where's Romulan
freak, yeah.
Legolas?
Yes,
He's jumping around the ship. He's fighting Romulans. They throw him with a stun grenade. Whatever. It's like he shakes it off. He's ching ching ching, right? And then 709 shows up in the nick of time as the
Ranger 7.
Ranger 7.
So you get Legolas, Romulan there, and you get Strider 7.
Yeah, I think you got the point there. So now they're together. Okay. Like, how did she show up? How did she get there?
He had the marker.
He had the marker, yeah.
Yeah, but when
He
you
sent
show
out
up
the
at the Borg
distress thing.
cube, when you show up with a ship at the Borg cube, they'll see you. The Romulans control it. So
Yeah, but she knows how to work the machine.
yeah, okay. So she's stuck in the back door somehow,
Yeah.
and now she's here.
She had the spare key.
Yeah.
It was under the Borg rock.
Right. Yeah, it was under the Borg. It was under that rock that woman hit herself in the head with.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, okay, these two are together. She's like, "Where's Hugh?" So indicating that she knew Hugh, and also that this big hug that they have like right before the credits, like
And
I guess
Elnor had the hug.
Elnor gives her the hug. I guess he's just happy to see a friendly face.
Yes. An absolute condor means he must express himself truthfully.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You might have
keep in mind he's young, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
He's still sort of, you're sort of like late adolescent, I think, more than anything else.
just
So.
an excellent, a really proficient killer in that.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, he's chopping off heads left and right. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll get to like I kind of like those two together in this episode. Really, his main role is just to kind of have someone for 7 or 9 to talk to about what she's doing. But I think that their part of the story actually worked kind of well. Although I do have a lot of kind of questions about how that battle sort of played out between Seven and Narissa. So after the credits, we get Rios. He's frozen. So this is just right after like Soji and Picard have beamed up from Nepenthe, and he's just like, oh, and it's like kind of brings back all this pain for him. So there's a lot of Rios in this episode. For me, he's a character that I really like. I'm finding him more and more interesting as the show goes on, and it's kind of nice that he's like just his backstory ties well into what's going on with this story.
A little too
conveniently, maybe. Yeah, because they just got him because randomly, right? Like Raffi knew him from something else, and
yeah.
What do you guys think about Rios?
Oh, he's cool.
Well, we get a lot of the crew dynamics. The La Tirana, like they're starting to become more of a crew, like a dysfunctional crew. But like his place in it, I think, is well established. I like his part in it. He sees Soji. This kind of brings up his whole story. He runs off. He's like, "Okay, I'll get you to D Space 12, and then I'm out. I don't want anything to do with this." Raffi pulls a gun on Soji right away. Too. She's like, "Hey, how are you doing? I know our mission's been to find you." And she's like, "Whoop!" Like,
what would have been Rios's reaction to if he saw that? Because wouldn't that also motivate him to like, wait, hold on, what's going on? Isn't this a flashback exactly of what happened previously to me?
Yeah. I would imagine that would trigger something in him. No pun intended.
Yeah. So. It just seemed very weird to have that right after he left, and then to find out what happened to him. I don't know. It's a lot of messy writing in this episode and how they kind of lay things out.
Well, I'll also keep in mind that I think Raffi pulled the phaser because this is the second person that Jean-Luc has had beamed up to the ship that is of questionable origin, right? Because now they know Girardi's was a mole. So
and she's like, "Guess what? I figured it out."
Yes,
I figured out Girardi. I'd forgotten that she had like. I thought she was just committing suicide in that last episode or whatever, but it was more like it was more that she was trying to get rid of the tracker that was in her. The chewable tablet that she had previously.
Tracker.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Flintstones vitamin she had from Commodore O. And she's just like, Girardi's a Romulan spy, and Picard's not really having it right away. But then, she's kind of like, well, there's a lot of things that I don't track. They finally talked to the EMH, who's like, yeah, she totally killed Maddox. I was there. I saw it. I don't know why I didn't mention it, but I didn't,
Exactly.
Nobody asked.
First time he would have been turned on, he should have like, hey, what's going on? Thing is dying. Oh, he's already dead? Oh, we need to talk about this. Nope, nothing.
No, right. But this allows them to like kind of move to the next thing where they're like, yeah, it's true. She killed him. She had the tracker. Now that we don't have the tracker in her, the Tal Shiar on our tail anymore. That's good. And Raffi just wants to go rub somebody's nose in it. So she says, okay, I'm going to go tell Rios next.
Poor Raffi needs a win.
Yeah. She just needs. Let's talk about Raffi. Are you guys up or down on Raffi as a character?
The Wesley Crusher of this series.
With the vape pen?
With her snake
cool
oil?
Wesley Crusher of
today's
era.
Good golly.
Any mystery, just give her a couple seconds and she'll figure it out. It's like I saw a picture in a background and I can figure out all this details. I can talk about it in our circle meeting later on with such intricate, like such detail. which doesn't even make sense because I don't know where she found out particular information that she's talking about, unless she talked to Girardi, who was in a coma, and Picard was the first person to talk to her. It just a lot of things don't. It just seemed like she's there for exposition, especially this episode.
Mm.
Yeah, and Tyrone, did you kind of?
I do kind of like her because she's at least the slightly neurotic foil to Picard, right? She's supposed to be, I guess, the skepticism for him because he's ready to run off and tilt at all the windmills.
He's a little trusting, yeah.
Yeah. Like he's, I guess she's his Sancho.
Yeah, well, she's one of these people. Like, can do anything professionally. She's like one of the best. Like, this is what they've established about her. She's like an excellent intelligence operative, security officer. Can kind of do it all. But she's also like kind of broken as a person. Her personal life is in shambles. Her family's disconnected. She doesn't really have anything other than being good at her job, which I think that's kind of her.
And knowing a truth that no one else does.
Right.
I like her.
Yeah.
I like her a lot. I just felt that this episode did not really do her character anything. Like, okay, she's gonna solve this particular part of the mystery. If it was drawn out as like a C storyline through a couple of episodes, where it was like she's talking to the various parties of the ship and gets a little bit of information and starts all to build up, and then she comes to a revelation, that's a lot better. But having it all contained in what seems like a couple of hours to figure out all this information just seems like a little too much for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they give her like they used to do this in Star Trek. Like if you watch like old Next Gen, like I got to solve the mystery, right? Whether it was Troy or Crusher, I think had this a couple times, or a few characters would be like, "I'm uncovering the mystery, the backstory." Da 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 da. They gave her this here, like she's an investigator, I guess, like she's a cop of sorts.
But moving to a serialized like story, they need to understand how they can't just switch in between how they present these stories, right? If it's a serialized story, they need to have something in the background running so that the revelation seems natural when it occurs, as opposed to, well, this is a time where we figure out everything episode, and we're just it just jumps from thing to thing, and it just seems like everything is easy to find and easy to figure out, as opposed to something being over the last couple of days she's been investigating, it's been nagging her. Rio sees distance, why is this occurring, and I'm talking to this one, I'm talking to the EMH because what's the name is in a Girardi's in a coma, and it leads me to the engineer because we need to get the engines running, and during our conversation of trying to fix things, we figured this out. Like, we draw it out, we let it come naturally, and the audience also starts to piece it together as well.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like there hasn't been a problem she hasn't been able to solve yet, right? Like, so over this I'd like to see her sort of be stumped, or a lot of them. It's not just her, but it's sometimes it feels a little too easy. Which I think I understand what you're saying. Okay, we got to chat now with Admiral Clancy. She's back. They have just from the mechanics of this, like they're on the holodeck, and I guess this is how you would have a conversation in the future. You could just have like like they did a bit of this in Deep Space Nine and some of the other shows, like this idea of like a holographic conversation. They did a lot of it in Discovery, mostly with like, but they were more like those like Star Wars blue looking holograms. They weren't like this. And that's not so important as the substance of this discussion. So Picard's like, okay, like this is the plot. The Romulans are trying to destroy all synthetic life. We're going to Deep Space 12. We need a squadron. We need to save the homeworld because the Romulans are after this. And she seems to be going along with it, right? She's making sure to put like Picard in his place. I don't think you should trust her. Do you?
No, no. I'm, I'm like, okay, why isn't Rio saying we should not go to Deep Space 12? Black Flag order is going to be in place, and we're going to get blown out of the sky, especially because we're not a Starfleet ship.
Yeah, like after what we just learned in the end, especially near the end of this episode, I'm like, this is absurd. Like, I don't know what you can do about it. I don't know how you can fight all of Starfleet, but
in the end, they're not going to Deep Space 12 anyways. They decide, screw it, we don't need the fleet. We need to go right to the homeworld.
Well, luckily, Soji took over and
Yeah.
kind of redirected them.
okay, so when they don't show up, though, right, to Deep Space 12, what is Clancy, like, even if we want to assume Clancy is on the level and she's being truthful to who she seems to be, or like at least that she seems to be willing to help now, when he doesn't show up, that's only gonna drive her nuts and maybe turn her against them anyway, right?
Well, she'll investigate, but where's she gonna go? She's gonna end up either talking to Commodore O, which I assume they never mentioned that she had a hand in this, because that will bring up a whole bunch of other questions. Your top security personnel is compromised, like that. Before you do any action, you got to figure that out, because how many pies has she had her finger in? Okay, maybe they go to the Borg ship to try to figure that out and see that it also is compromised. Like, where are they going to go? There's a whole backstory of stuff that needs to happen. So I don't think their help's coming anytime soon.
No.
Yeah.
Although I wonder if Seven will decide to get the Borg show on the road there and hijack the cube.
Yeah, well, she was trying to in this one. Yeah, let's get to that in a minute. Like, well, I guess as this is going on, so we talked about Raffi's doing her investigation. She's slowly interviewing the holograms, which so she starts off with the Irish navigation hologram. So what do we learn here? We learn that there's something about Jana that we start to piece together that the holograms all represent different pieces of Rios. I guess that's the title, right? Broken Pieces. That's where it's referring to him. And so they all have a little bit of the information regarding his backstory and what happened and why he is the way he is now.
And all the crew are broken pieces too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I guess the crew are the broken pieces. Yeah, so it's like a double metaphor. Yeah. Just that this. Wait, how did she? The part that doesn't make sense is she shows them like that 8-star system, right? Or the what's it called? An octenary. That's kind of like the first breadcrumb that leads them down where they go. But where did she find that information? Was that? Do you guys understand that?
I think she was asking about Rios, and then Rios. They might have mentioned that Rios was shook, and then they brought up Jana, I think, and that's where
she found that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't completely. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, like what she was even showing him at the beginning.
Oh no, because what it was that the Romulans were drawing the octenary system.
Yes,
that's what had twigged her. So the crazy Romulans on the cube were drawing this. So and then she made the deductive leap from the 8 being 8 people to the 8 stars of this icon that had been being drawn, because at that point she had no idea what that was still.
Right. Okay. Thank you, because I just wasn't putting that together. Okay, got it. Maybe we should talk about all 5 of these personalities when they're together later on. But yeah, so the Conclave of 8. There's an 8-star system. I've never seen one. We'll come back to that. Narissa, we're back on the cube. Narissa is finding soldiers killed with a phaser instead of a sword, so she knows that he's got some help now. And right away, she finds the Fenris Ranger badge. So I think she figures out 709's in here and is part of this. And she's like, "Guess what? I'm taking over the whole cube. This is on. We're taking these guys on." Which I was like, "Okay, great. Let's take the fight to these people, right?" Narissa is freaking, and then it's like, okay, the Borg cube is starting to regenerate. So 709's activating things. She's turning the lights on in certain parts of the ship. I thought this was really cool. Like just watching like out on the outside how the ship was like regenerating, and you saw like the little drones, like the moving around. Like I was like, that's an awesome effect that they did. They never done something like that before.
Yeah.
No, when they showed it before, it was like watching the kit bash go back together in reverse time on the next gen.
Yes.
I thought it was a cool effect as well. The whole sequence, I wish there was a whole episode kind of dedicated to that interaction as well. The whole fight back and forth. But once again, that's the difference between what this is going to be a 10, 13 episode series versus a 24 episode series. So
Yeah.
they can't really have that dedication to it. And plus the budget for it would be probably way too much.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting, just the chess match between them. So her counter, so when she figures out what 709's doing, that she says, okay, we're going to kill all the Borg. All the ones that are in stasis, do something, and her buddy suggests we'll just throw them into space, which is what we see later on. She's like, ooh, I like that. And then she's like, give me a gun, I'm going to kill all the ex-Borgs that are here, right? Narissa. So we kind of touched on her earlier. She is I want a little bit, like they try to give her more make her more interesting in this episode, I guess, with this thing with her aunt and the fact that her parents died and that she helped raise them, and then they went through this experience together. But she's just so evil, and I just don't understand
I don't
her.
think of her as evil, right? Try to think of, like, from her perspective, she's doing what is necessary, what is right, because she's trying to save the world, basically. So at the very end, they're trying to make a villain who has motivations that you can at least understand and kind of appreciate, although it's totally against Picard's hopefulness and belief in, I guess, organic life spirit, because it's not just humanity, but like we can do better than the previous people, right, who had this similar issue. Right, the sins of the past won't necessarily
repeat themselves.
Correct.
Right, lead to the same path. Yeah, like that seems like an enlightened point of view. It seems like the obvious point of view. Right? I guess it's the whole sense of like what fear does to you. Is that's kind of what it is, right? Like that whole, like you grab onto that admonishment, and now you're kind of giving into fear, and now you're driven. That's all you're driven by.
You're also dealing with a different culture, right? One of totalitarianism, one of secrecy, one of like absolute control, right? So if you're throwing in this extra wrinkle of synthetic life that you don't A, understand, and B, you can't control the same way, like all different levers of control, it represents a change in the status quo that cannot be countenanced, kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, my thing with Narissa is the whole, like, she needs a train track and a damsel to tie them to. She's like just so cartoony in that respect. But when you mentioned that she needs a handlebar mustache to twirl, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, like she's just so intense, and like, so I'm like, give us, like, help us understand if this is like a real person, because right now she doesn't feel like that at all.
I think that's what parts of this episode was trying to do, but once again, episode doesn't do a lot of characters a lot of favors. This is something that should have been, spread out through a whole set of episodes. Yes, she's hard on her brother, but there's a side of her that still loves her aunt. Like, if this show was put in better hands, I think we would have seen a lot of those elements being seeded throughout the earlier episodes, so that we come to this revelation and it goes, okay, we understand that, yes, she is driven, determined, and evil from our perspectives, but she's also still a person trying to do what she thinks is right. So look at we'll get to it. I don't want to jump ahead when we start talking about the revelation scene with Girardi and the rest of the crew.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So like there was a commercial after like we see like the Borgs that this is amping up between Narissa and Seven, and then we come back. It's kind of a quiet scene. Picard and Soji on the ship having breakfast, and they have this conversation. She doesn't really know how to sort out what's her programming and what's sort of her and what's her self determination, which I think that's compelling and interesting because I don't think we have a good understanding of that yet either, and neither does she. But it turns into this like conversation about Data and his connection with Data, and I thought it went really well this whole scene. I thought that the like Picard, Patrick Stewart, like acted the hell out of it. You feel it, you feel the pain of the loss. And then they talk, Soji qualifies it like, he loved you too, right? As a fact, not as like a theory.
Yeah, she knows.
Did you guys like this scene?
I did.
I love this scene. I wish there was more of this. This did a great job in kind of showing where Picard is as a person and his growth from where TNG was to where he is now. He realizes that he was very closed off as a person, and Data wasn't the only robot that was occurring during that time period, and he kind of shelved a lot of emotions and the things that he wanted to say, and now looking back he wish he kind of said them, wish he was able to express them, and then having Soji kind of, Data understood and Data loved you, like you knew that like meant a lot to Picard as well, and then plus being able to help Soji trying to find herself and uh, uh, try to distinguish between herself and her program. I thought that was a good start to where she's going to eventually end up. So I love that scene.
It was a bit of a TNG deep cut too, in that Picard as a character coming sort of full circle in that in his younger years, which he was alluding to on the bridge about being an ensign on the Reliant. But his whole issue when he was younger was that he was hot-headed and very emotional and very he dove into everything kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got impaled by a Nausicaan and decided he should probably tamp that shit down a little.
Yeah, he got that duratanium heart now.
Yes, which I think when Raffi threatened to shoot him, he was like, "Well, you're not going to get nothing."
Yeah.
But one of the other funny little callbacks there on that was that the cadet that was with him was Rios's captain. Marta.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah.
What, are you saying that the guy that was Rios's captain was the same guy that the redhead that got into it with him?
No. The girl that was with Picard at the bar, she was his captain. That's how he knew. He knew of Rios's old captain.
This his name was Vandermeer, right?
Yeah.
Alonzo Vandermeer. Okay.
Yes.
He seems to be an important. So they didn't know each other directly. They were sort of
right. He knew of Vandermeer through his friendship with his former captain. So mentor to mentor to mentor kind of thing.
Yeah, a couple degrees of separation there, but
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think that I've been sort of up and down with the actress who plays Soji, Isa Briones. I've been sort of up and down on her through this whole thing, but this one I thought was really good, and worked really well. And I think that you're starting to see them come. They're starting to build this trust, which I think last episode was all about how they were. I'm trying to help you, and you're a jerk, and I don't know you, and my whole life's a lie, and blah blah blah. So they're starting to sort of find some common ground. It seems.
I'm an angsty teen dealing with my new father figure.
Yes,
exactly. Raffi is then talking to the emergency engineering program, who we hadn't met before this episode, the Scottish personality. I watched this episode with subtitles the second time and just trying to follow the Scottish version. And it's literally written out like nonsensically. It's not
lovely.
like phonetically as he's pronouncing it.
Yeah.
Not a lot here. It's just like it's the next piece of the puzzle. We get to a little bit of this personality, and we get more. I don't know if it was in the scene before, but we saw like their eyes go blue, I guess, when they're accessing information or they're kind of tapping into the database. That was kind of a neat effect. Something kind of reminds you that they're not real, that they're holograms, and that they're part of the system. Yeah, I don't think there's much to comment on there. We can move on. But Raffi, after this conversation, she wants her booze. She wants her burgundy. She's going for it. And Mr. Hospitality, the third personality, we'll see. He's like, no, you turn that off. You told me to throw away the keys and never let you back into the liquor cabinet ever again. So we get a bit more of that. We get more how they're different. She explains a bit more of how when Rios showed up, he did the self-image on the protocol for the holograms, and therefore they not only do they look like him, but they have his personalities, I guess, to a certain extent, or they have his memories, right?
Like brainwaves.
Yeah.
But he deleted parts of each of them and never went back to fix how they look like him.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like he left a lot of like areas for them for someone like Raffi to come along and piece this together. Maybe that's what he kind of wanted. But Mr. Hospitality explains like, I have better grooming. So they definitely just like in Multiplicity, like with Michael Keaton back in the 90s, they developed like these very exaggerated personalities for each of them. Yeah. Anyway.
It's a little comic relief.
Yeah, it's a little comic. It's comic relief, but there's no So sometimes I'm like, well, what's there to say about this? Not much. It's just entertaining. But we go over to Rios. He's in his quarters. He's drinking it up himself, and he tells her to leave them the hell alone. But he's going through his old stuff. He starts looking at. This is where we see Alonzo Vandermeer's photo, and the fact I just like the chest. Him going through the memories and. All the the pips and everything that was in there. It was kind of just nice. And we start, we see him with a sketch and Jana is very much Soji.
Yeah.
So what does this tell us? So this happened. Well, yeah. See, they'll explain it. So I don't know if I should jump to there yet, but
it happened 2385. Was it
12 years? I think they said. Like
about 10. So
10 years?
It's after the Mars stuff. It's well after that. But it's
2390.
2390. This is 2399. So it's about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so that there was an android like Soji named Jana, and Beautiful Flower was like another one.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the man, and you know that all the Janas have all in Soji they're all named after flowers. So
are they?
Yes.
Oh.
So I think they killed the dad.
They killed the dad?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't like these Jat Vash. I don't like what they're doing. They're bad, man. They're pissing me off. Yeah. So okay, we're seeing that this is very traumatic for Rios. Seeing her bringing this all up is really tough. But guess what? We got to go back over to 7. She's making her own little mini collective.
Yes.
Let's get her. There she is in her glory.
I had so much problems with these scenes. For someone who tried so hard to separate herself from the collective, I just felt that there should have been a little bit more like back and forth as to, going to this extent. This should have been like the absolute last resort, and it seemed like she just kind of jumped in like I have to do it.
They didn't have to convince her too hard on this, did they?
55-minute runtime.
Well, yeah. Well, Eleanor was just like, do that, do whatever you got. Like, I only have a sword. I can't do anything. So whatever your plan is, I'm all for it.
I have no concept of personal consequence or growth or the pain that you might be feeling at throwing away everything you've worked for the last 25 years.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do
There are
it.
a
Make
lot
a
of
little
bad
mini
guys
film.
out there.
Just bad guys. Bad guys have to be stopped. Well, this 7 of 9 that we're meeting now, this version of her, she's just like doing anything to stop the bad guys. We don't even know how she got off that planet. It's not even seems to be important how she got off of Free Cloud and shot her way out of that bar. But
yeah, because
Plot
it seemed like her
transporter.
last stand, right?
yeah, it
Get a
seemed like
plot
that.
transporter. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, she got out. It didn't. We knew she was coming. She was not dying there, but it was just like, I got out. I killed everybody in that bar. It was fine.
Badass credential achieved.
Yeah. Oh, 7. Yeah, but when she was like tapping into that collective, and it was like those things were going into her spine, right? And like her spine was like lighting up with all the implants. I'm like, that's awesome. Like they never did that before.
Great effect.
Yeah. Yeah, just story wise, like I get what you're saying. She did kind of jump into this pretty easily.
Well, there was some trepidation.
There was some.
Did, she was like, I might not want to let them go. They might not want to be enslaved. And then he was like, well, and then she lost everyone anyway. Like, I think that she jacked in just in time just to see them all get spaced.
Yeah, but they wouldn't die from that. Like, can't the Borg survive in space?
Yeah, no, because they have organic pieces, right? That stuff's all gonna go.
But in Star Trek First Contact, like when they're on that little fight on the saucer,
they were on the saucer, and they weren't protected.
Like that scene in particular, like established Borg can survive in a vacuum without like any kind of suit. Like their implants kind of do that for them.
So couldn't she just teleport them back into the cube after this whole experience?
I would imagine so. The other thing too is also that the Borg also have like magnetic boots effectively built into their shoes, right? Like because.
Well, the thing's also crawling with small self-propelled bots.
Right.
They could all you could like have like a swarm effect where they just all jump off the cube, go grab all the Borg back, and bring them back into the ship.
Yeah. I hear you. I don't know. Yeah, like it was cool, but it didn't go anywhere. Like I wanted to see it I wanted to see her actually like unleash on these Romulans.
I think they're saving that because clearly they had a Romulan fleet leave at the end of that episode, and Seven's in command of that cube. So there is the run to Soji's planet there, and I suspect that the cube is going to be hot on their heels.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So that's headed. Okay.
Borg cube to the rescue. You've never heard those words before.
No, definitely not. Okay, so we got the holodeck scene with all the Rioses. Let's pull them up here just so we can see all 5 of them. So in the far left, you got the engineering one, Ian. You got Enoch, the navigation guy. Emmett, the tactical guy. Mr. Hospitality, and then the EMH at the far right there. And so this whole scene was, as we've been alluding to, it's Raffi. Raffi's putting it together. Did you guys like this scene?
No.
I thought it was fun. It was some cheap fun. I mean, the whole, what even is that language? You kind of expect it, but it was cute to get the payoff.
Yeah. So what didn't you like about it?
I like it was a little bit too cute. It was too cute. You know what? Once again, if it felt like it was earned, then I would have felt a lot better about that scene, kind of like the final revelation of, okay, let's put all of them in the room. But once again, it was like she spent like 2 minutes with each of them for like in this episode, and then all of a sudden we have this payoff, right? And everything just works out. It seems too easy. Too easy.
Yeah. 55-minute runtime, Jaemeel.
Yeah.
Remember.
There you go.
That's not a good enough reason for me.
I know.
You want your extended Lord of the Rings version of the episode?
You know what? I love episodic Star Trek,
Yeah.
but finally getting serialized Star Trek that seems to be well thought out. Sorry,
Mm.
Discovery, and like I expect like a certain level of storytelling, and
Mm.
I get it in some places, and other places, like this episode specifically, it just seems like okay, we're just gonna dump a whole lot of things in this episode, or they wrote the story up to a certain point, and then they're like, well, to get to the next part, we gotta just do this exposition dump, and then we can move on, and they should.
Yeah.
Uh, this needed another rewrite.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about is um, how how far into the writing process they were for the season when they got the news that they were renewed for season two. So how much of the season had they broke already, and then how
Mhm.
much of the season did they have to go back and rethink? Because I'm guessing that with the news of that second season, they decided not to wrap the whole thing up, and then
Or
so
leave
I think
some
that
things unresolved at least.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's where sort of some of your pacing problems might be coming from because they went and tried to throw in a little bit, extend a little bit, but then not do a great job of like they packed the sandwich a little too much in some spots, kind of thing.
Do you think that if they knew they had a second season, the whole Raffi uh, son issue would have been left for second season and just would have left that unspoken of?
I think that that's the only thing you've got that's really so far a concrete reason for why she is so broken. Um, I mean, even Picard resigning, like nothing that I've seen besides her sort of single-minded dedication to this theory um, shows where that sort of like the depth of that emotional damage is coming from. Like the only thing that could justify that is the loss of her family. So I think you had to get that in there to sort of justify the pain that character has because it's too much to carry without um, being told, kind of thing.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and well, I also think like these 5 holograms. I think they're just like 5 characters on the show, right?
Mhm.
Like they're just so Rios, the actor who plays Cristobal, the actor who plays Rios, I can't remember his name right off this. Santiago Cabrera. That's
Yes.
it. So he's just playing 6 parts on the show, like, and I guess like that's the crew of the ship.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I need 5 of them. It's all. It's a lot. I don't see like there. A couple of them are just not different enough. I find that the EMH and the hospitality guy are very similar. So it's a little tougher to distinguish those two, other than one does medicine and one gets you drinks or not.
I'm a little bit like the tactical guy who's all sort of like I can't be bothered to be here. Like it just seems like he has a very strange like is it that he's all spent after he's done his tactical stuff because he seems very tired.
Yeah, he's very. Yeah, I think that's just built into his personality that he's always like kind of lethargic and kind of just not
But
really.
the tactical guy,
Yeah,
the one who's supposed to be alert and making sure that they don't die.
yeah.
That's the guy.
The one time they brought him into action, he was just like, "You fly, I shoot, boom, boom, boom." Like he's, that was all there was to him. Like, and he speaks Spanish the most of any of them.
Yeah.
So my understanding of Santiago Cabrera is, he's like of Hispanic origin, but also kind of grew up in England and Ireland and a whole bunch of different countries, and that's why that's part of the reason they did this. Like they built these five different accents and weird things into it.
There's the question. Writer comes up to him and goes, "How many accents can you do?"
Well, you got the job.
I got 3 good ones and 2 questionable ones. Can you work with that?
It's like we'll make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want let's talk Girardi. Because she was that was like the next thing on this was that Girardi wakes up. Picard's sitting over her saying, she goes, "Did it work?" He's like, "If you mean getting the Romulan chewable tablet out of you, yes." But he's like, "You're going to jail. We're taking you to Deep Space 12. You're surrendering to the authorities. You killed Maddox. He was your mentor, your lover." He's very disappointed / what do you say? Confused with her.
Mhm.
And then she kind of explains her point of view. That my mind was like
Poisoned.
poisoned.
Yeah.
I want to kill myself every day. That's how I'm thinking about doing. And she's, I don't know. I'm still having a hard time like accepting that these people are just like so brainwashed and so like they saw some flashes and now they're not who they were anymore.
Once again, like I want to know to what extent are those memories? Is it like one singular memory, or is it like, what if it's like an entire group of individuals, collective feelings and emotions and thoughts about a circumstance, and it's just so overpowering, right? That it causes people to relent. And like, if you have, like, just imagine if you had 30 people who lived through the Holocaust, and we collected their feelings and emotions concerning that issue and then stuffed it into a person all at the same time. And then you're like, here's a German, right? There would be an immediate reaction that would be extremely negative, right? That's how I'm trying to think of it.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
only way I can think of it that rationalizes it, that makes it make sense.
I guess when you put it like that, I guess I buy into it more. I just don't know if they presented it as well
And
as maybe they
I think
could.
that's the issue. They haven't done a good job of presenting some of this information and how people are supposed to react to certain things. And everyone's just kind of scratching their head going, I guess I'll believe that it does this, but we don't we're not we don't feel it. We don't get that feeling of it. Express better to Picard why you did what you did. And it just, she's like, I was poisoned. I didn't know what I was doing. You knew what you were doing. You were doing this because of the reaction. Say, like, you felt this extreme hatred. Once we got closer to um involving ourselves with the synth, it took over this raw emotion. And yes, I killed Maddox. I didn't want to, but I looked at him and I knew what he was possibly going to do, and I had to do what I needed. Had to do it. I had to kill him. Right? Just, it, like, express that emotion, detail that. Right? Why your motivations occurred. It's, I was poisoned. You know, it seemed so half-hearted at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also keep in mind that there was also talk about how O had put a block in her
Yeah.
about talking about it and stuff. So I mean, that's your little bit of wiggle room around the motivations and why she did what she did, because now you can't separate whether her actions are her own and it's her own intent, or whether it was O implanting that intent in her. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like even last week when we saw the flashback and we see it and it's like it's a very brief mind meld and then she like throws up and she's like, whatever you needed to do, I'll do it. Okay, I'll chew your tablet and I'll go infiltrate Picard's like ship and be sort of a fly in the wall for you. And she killed, like, how deceptive she was and how she like kind of fooled them, and then she kills Maddox. What I keep coming back with Girardi is like, how much can I sympathize with her? Is she a likable character? I liked her initially, like in her initial couple episodes. Some of the panel were sort of up and down on her, feeling like she was a little bit too. She was kind of like the Tilly of this show. It felt like that's where
And
she
I
was
love
going.
me some Tilly.
Yeah, I like Tilly. I think she's fun. I thought that that's what this Girardi character was going to be. It turns out she's not. She's like somehow, what is she? Like she's like a double agent. She's a liability. She's sort of a tragic character a little bit. And
Like, I take her goofy offbeat nature in the first couple episodes due to her, like as she said, she'd never traveled in space before, so this was exciting and new, and she just felt kind of out of place, but she wanted to be on this adventure, uh thinking that uh, like once again it goes back to my feelings about how there should have been a better job expressing feelings and motivations for some characters. So uh, from my point of view with her, um she had this mission from but yet like outside of that, she would want to help Picard, and she is interested in synthetic life because that was her life's work. So
Mhm.
she's conflicted by this situation where she does want to help and she does like this adventure in some respects, but uh, everything starts becoming more real, right? And therefore, that lingering feeling that was behind her uh, starts coming up to the forefront, which causes her to do these things that she wouldn't normally do.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, my big question is, does Girardi survive this season?
Oh, she did. She is dead.
Are they gonna like bring her as part of the crew into next season? I don't see how they can now. Like maybe like I was brainwashed. I'm not responsible for my actions fully, maybe, but it seems tough.
She's being set up to make the sacrifice that actually, allows the resolution kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
She dies protecting Soji. They later on there's a monument or a plaque on their homeworld dedicated to her. You know, there's a
Right.
little bit of sorrowful music, and we move on, and we never talk about the character ever again. That's what's going to happen in the end of the season. That's what I see.
Yeah. I think you might have a point there. I think you might have a point. Okay. Next scene, sorry, was the Rios's quarter. I like the Billie Holiday song that they brought in My Solitude. And this is where Rios explains the whole thing to her. We ran into these two synths. We didn't know that they were just two people, right?
Yeah.
Called the bell. Hey, we're gonna make first contact. We had a nice dinner, I guess, that had French fries and peppermint ice cream. And then the captain just shoots them both in the head all out of nowhere. And what we learn is they basically, I think Commodore O gave this order, right?
Yes.
The Black Flag Order, yes.
The Black Flag Order. And it was like, kill them or we will blow your ship remotely.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? Like, Starfleet's done some dumb things. Like, even like you can look at like the order around Talos 4 and all that being a little bit like over the top. But this
Omega Directive.
Yeah, the Omega Directive. Like, I guess like it's not unprecedented for Starfleet to do like something drastic like this, or Section 31 or something like that. But man, that's shocking. Like to see them do that.
What I don't get from the description of this is, Rios at the end details that he jettisoned the bodies out of the ship.
Yeah, beam them into space, I think he said. Yeah.
So those bodies are just floating around with all that possible technology to be picked up. It just seems like a loose end that might be picked up later on.
Right. Well, they would be organic androids. Like their bodies are presumably still there, right?
Mm-hmm. Although it would be just so much easier to beam them out without a destination.
Yeah. Just leave them in the transport buffer.
Mm.
Something like that. Yeah. Like now we know Rios' story, and okay, it's as good as any. So I'm,
they've done a lot of work into him.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like the whole, being the solitude thing, the books he's reading, like everything sort of goes in to support his character, which is kind of neat. I'm wondering where the siren comes in, because as they were panning over coming into his room,
he loves mermaids. All of his trinkets are mermaids,
and his ship is named the Siren, right? Yeah. So it's like, what's calling to him? What is going to be that thing?
What is calling to him? Is it Starfleet
or his possible ex-wife? Maybe.
He has an ex-wife.
No, I'm just assuming.
Yeah,
That's season 2.
there you
Season
go.
2. Yeah, like I don't know. I would like to see more of like or even Star Trek has never done flashbacks before this show, but now that we have flashbacks, it feels like, or I guess Discovery was the first to do it, but in a big way. But yeah, like I'd like to know more about those days. I'd like to know about that Vandermeer guy. I'd like to know like what that ship was all about. The ship was classified, they said. So like it's
Well,
was
the
a
ship
battle
itself
cruiser.
wasn't classified. I think they turned it. They classified it afterwards, kind of thing, right? Like it was just a regular exploration vessel or whatnot at that point, and then because of their interaction with the synthetics, it all of a sudden became, Talos 4 again, or the Discovery,
Yeah.
where no one shall ever speak its name again.
Which is why a conspiracy nut like Raffi would have had him on her radar,
Yeah.
because of the whole situation. She would have like, what happened to this ship and this captain. Couldn't get the details of it, but at least knew that he was a excellent person to be used, right? Operative. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and while we're getting this scene, it's cut in between like Girardi and Soji having a conversation. And Girardi, despite being like completely broken from this, is like, you drink when you're thirsty, and you got dimples on your cheeks and whatever. I don't trust this Girardi. Nobody. Lock her up. She's a liability.
Well, I kind of put that too. Once again, she's basically seeing a fulfilled version of her life's work in front of her.
Yeah.
And she's finally able to ask all these questions, like things that they never thought would be possible. Dreaming, like Data's dreams were like such an anomaly that it was investigated, and they're seeing someone doing it naturally. Emotion being able to express without from I guess quote unquote birth. Like it is an ideal version of her life's work in front of her, so she would have 1,000,001 questions, and there would be a level of, I guess, joy and wonderment that she would have. Once again, I feel like it should have been expressed with her battling the emotions of what she's seen as well with this. Like, and maybe it could have been a written better or had a better actress to kind of display that emotion, but I just felt very disappointed by this scene and what we were getting. That confrontation should have been a bigger confrontation.
Yeah.
Well, they're larger swings in emotion. Like you're changing motivations again, right? So we've gone back from the original Girardi to the mentally
Operative.
raped operative Girardi, to now her rediscovering her tilliness kind of thing, right? That wonder at what she's seeing before her, and the fact that now that she sees the reality in front of her, it is overpowering what was implanted in her head, kind of thing.
Right. And Soji says to her, "I'm not going to give you the chance to kill me." I'm like, good. Keep your eye on her. And Girardi comes back and says, hey, I'm done murdering people. Let's have. I'm on the team. I'm part of this group. I'm here, and I think you're probably right that she's likely to be like a sacrifice at the end. But we'll see. But this was the first time we had like our conference room meeting of this ship, and it's in their little mess hall, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Pulled straight from the Matrix.
Like, Star Trek's been criticized a lot for being just like a talking heads show sometimes, where just people sit around a table and talk about problems and what the mission is, and you never really see the action. But usually they were in at least a nice room. This, I'm like, I don't know. This ship has everything except for a nice meeting room, and I think that I guess I'm partial to that.
They couldn't use like a holodeck to get like a nice conference room.
Yeah, or just go to the holodeck. Just make one. You can make a conference room, or like there was one scene where they were just kind of like hanging around in his like holographic study, and they were just
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't like the en route picnic tables?
No, no, I don't. It's like, what is this? Yeah. And this is where we get all the explanation. Okay, so somebody was able to take 8 suns and put them into a singular system, and then put a planet in the middle. Like, who could do that?
The Takan.
The Takan?
Mm.
The Q? Like they're the only
Q could do it.
Yeah. Because he asked that Enoch guy, they go, well, why would anybody do it? He's like, I don't know, show off. Like, look cool. And so they explain everything. Jot Vosh, they believe that there's some kind of a diversion point, dividing line on synth evolution. But why did they never target Data then? Why was Data allowed to?
So what was told was, so Commander O was implanted because of Data, and then rose up the ranks. So as Data was only the only individual synth that was in Starfleet, or of that of that level of technology, it was still not like at midnight, like doomsday scenario. So there were still times to let's see where this is going. If Data dies, then there's no problem. So what, there was Data, Lore, and B4 that you have running around. So only 3. The creator is gone. So Data was the only one that was kind of making more of him, and then Data was gone. So when Bruce Maddox started his work again and following Data's footsteps, then things became a lot more real, I guess, at that point.
Okay.
Or was Bruce Maddox's disappearance the cause, the call for alarm, because he disappeared and they couldn't really see where he was, and therefore they were like, okay, we gotta mobilize and really look after this?
Yeah. Okay. Like, is it possible that, like, would you feel good if like they went back even and like were like, remember that when Data invented Lal, like his daughter?
Yeah.
If they like retconned it to say that the Romulans were sort of responsible, or Starfleet, that they were somehow responsible for what happened to her. Would that be interesting?
Back to the Future episode.
Yeah,
we just kind of see them sneaking behind and kind of taking care of things.
Like this has always been going on. That there was sort of a, like, that would be a complete retcon. But
well, I mean, if you look at what's going on in Discovery, I mean, what was the big bad in season 2?
Control.
An AI. That has now been flung into the future. Right.
And that's what we're gonna see where Discovery picks up on that. But yeah, like Kurtzman and all the creatives over at Star Trek now, they definitely love that, like, the artificial intelligence is going to kill us all, and we're going to inject a ton of that into Star Trek now. And we were saying, like,
Elon Musk must have some of them on the payroll.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, because that's in real life, in our real world, there is growing concern about the rise of AI, and if it gets so smart that we can't control it anymore, and this is going to happen sooner than later. And we don't necessarily have to wait till the 25th century or the 24th century.
I mean, if you listen to the sort of like the prophecy there, the Jat Vash thing, it's the talking about the coming of the destroyer after like a certain signal has been sent. So, but is the destroyer the synthetics, or is it something that's sent for them to destroy them and destroy everything else at the same time? And is that, the whole crescendo of the series, synthetics and non-synthetics uniting to defeat the destroyer, kind of thing?
That could be the case.
That could be the case. Maybe I would like that.
That's where Girardi sort of makes the sacrifice, I bet.
And then Rizzo's like, I was wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it sort of heals the rift, right? So
Yeah.
because humanity's got to take one for the team because they're the ones that have been screwing the synthetics,
Yeah.
or organics have been.
Right. So, like, this was the last scene of the episode, right? Like them just talking about where they're going.
No.
No.
What happened? What have I what have I left out?
Soji gets up. She's like, I have to get to my home planet now that I've given up where it is. And then she walks off, and then she takes over the ship.
Oh, right. I forgot about all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Rio sings a lullaby to take back the ship.
Yeah.
That lullaby is called
Eros con leche.
and the meaning for it. Do you know the meaning?
Something about milk.
Well, that's the translation, but supposedly the meaning of it is one's greatest ambition is to get married, or all of life's problems will be solved by getting married, or the mixture of like two things. So hence why I believe Rios's wife or significant other or ex significant other might play a part in the second season. They kind of put that hint in there. Like why would he kept such a thing as his override code?
Yeah, that was like his lost password code or whatever. Like secret question. Here's the translation to the lullaby. Race with milk wishes to get married with a little widow from the capital who knows how to weave, who knows how to embroider, who puts the church steeple in the bell tower.
Words to live by.
Okay.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to mean much. Maybe it's nicer in the original Spanish. Yes, I forgot. Yes, that Soji kind of went full like Data take over the ship mode.
Yeah. And then you got what's his name?
Nurkic?
Narek taken off into the chasing behind them in the.
So was he waiting for them?
It seemed like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's coming in off to the side, like he knows where they were going.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Once he stopped tracking them, he's like, well, I know where they're gonna end up, so I might as well just wait there for them.
And that's how Narek finds them, right?
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah. And then then that was the end. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and as we're heading into like the next episode, which it looks like it's going to be a 2-parter, like 9 and 10 are going to be like, it's called
Best of Both Worlds. Oh no.
Et in Arcadia Ego, Part 1.
Which in Latin stands for?
I don't know. What does that stand for?
My Latin's garbage.
Even in Arcadia, even in Arcadia, there I am. What does that mean? What is that from? It must be Shakespeare.
What is Arcadia supposed to stand for or supposed to represent?
It's like an ideal place, I think.
Et Arcadia Ego, is that what it's called? Yeah, is a painting by Nicolas Poussin from 1590 something. The leading painter of classical French Baroque style, depicts a pastoral scene with idealized shepherds from classical antiquity gathered from around an austere tomb.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Utopia.
It's Utopia?
Yeah.
That's that's what it represents. So interesting. That's interesting. Okay. So because I think a lot of people have been, the big criticism of the show so far has been like, you're kind of destroying Star Trek's like utopian vision, or Gene Roddenberry's utopian vision, making like the Star Trek universe just this anarchist sort of like place with no rules, no morality has been lost. And maybe that's going to be what the theme is that they're going to touch on in this 2-parter. Speculation.
Well, I can understand that criticism overall about Star Trek, but I think it's just Star Trek kind of adapting itself into modern times. And what I say by that is Gene's original vision was looking very hopeful for the future, saying that as we grow as a society, we'll eventually grow into this utopia state where differences will be accepted and we will be able to, be better than we currently are. Looking at modern times where we're currently having a lot of trouble with issues, and we're not where we thought we would be from where we thought way back when. So it's Picard's hope that Starfleet has lost its way, but eventually it will figure it out and once again become what it should have stood for. So same thing as us as society, we're not where we should have been, and we should be striving to be better than we are and get where we thought should be.
Sorry, is there some kind of like sound in the background?
I'm hearing it. I don't know if it's me.
I think that might be my wife whisking eggs.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. I was like, what is that? Okay. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Tyrone, with the like, are they taking out too much of the utopian vision that we had, like maybe in the original series and especially in Next Gen?
Well, I think you have to establish that there's a cultural breakdown, right? There's also a like with any kind of major change, you're going to have things that fall apart before they can come back together, right? Like the whole, like, having the collapse of the Romulan Empire is such a sea change for the Federation that there's vacuums that will be filled by opportunists and that kind of thing. So it's not surprising that there would be difficulties, in the fabric of the Federation in regards to that, especially with, you've got Picard who's seeing the rescue of the Romulans as a moral imperative, yet they give up on it, right? So it's like that softening of the moral backbone of the Federation, and the and doing it partly out of fear, partly out of expediency. So there's all of that going on in the backdrop. So it makes sense to me that it has become a darker place as they try and figure out, what their mission is and how much they have to care for their, fellow person.
Well, yeah, just life in general, like protect, whether it be artificial life or not,
or people that were, former enemies that could be friends, maybe, it's there's a lot of moral ambiguity going on, and there's a lot of like that's your sort of like your classic literary thing, right, where you have to overcome your fear in order to embrace that change and welcome in a better future.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And so I'm curious to see where this wraps up. I'm especially curious to see what Admiral Clancy does next, in particular, because Starfleet has lost its way, it seems, largely. And if they can, I will be happy if they can find a way to turn this around, to overcome like sort of these bad seeds like Commodore O and these others that are in Starfleet.
I think it's gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
This is also story that they've trod before. I mean, the Undiscovered Country was essentially, this storyline, right? There was
let them
peace
die.
coming to the Romulans.
No, you got to say the line. Don't believe them. Don't trust them. They're dying, Jim. Let them die.
Let them die.
I love it.
Yeah. Right. Shatner didn't want to say the line, famously, or he wanted to like say it and also like try to walk it back like right away.
Yeah.
And they cut it right after he said it. So it's not like that. Like, Yeah, because so Shatner was furious with Nicholas Meyer about that.
It's great.
But yeah, let them die. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. But that was like, I always took like the Kirk era as being less enlightened, right? And like they were a bit more like,
Punch an alien in the face.
yeah, punch an alien in the face. Like they're more like cowboys, right? Like they, and then like the Picard era was more. They were diplomats. They were sophisticated. They had evolved beyond a lot of that kind of stuff too. And now, but no, we're bringing it back in. So yeah, I don't know. It's just what I keep focusing on. I'm like,
Well, they also, one of the things that they were talking about during like his trip to the Romulan world that he got Elnor off of was that these things are like they're like the Wild West. So we're back to wagon train to the stars, right? There's no
right.
there's no authority. There's no central
And
control,
that's where the Rangers have come in, where they're trying to, kind of bring justice to the frontier.
Yeah.
Right. And Starfleet just doesn't have capacity or doesn't want to do that kind of stuff.
It's probably a mixture of no capacity, don't want, and also aren't welcome, right? Because you're talking about Romulans who feel like they have been
done wrong,
abandoned. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
And after what, like 2 big wars, you had the Borg, you had the whole
Dominion
War.
Dominion War. Yeah. And that didn't go well for it because there was so much we never saw in the Dominion War, but they would just say that it's bad. There's not a lot of ships anymore.
A lot of concessions that they had to make as a society to kind of win that war too.
Mm-hmm.
So like
the moral slide happened there, right? With Deep Space Nine.
And it's been going down ever since. Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry, I don't mean to leave. I know we're probably going to need to wrap this up, and I don't mean to end on a down note. I liked this episode overall. I thought that, but how I'm going to feel about the whole season is still all dependent on where this goes in the next 2 parts. So, at least they're trying. At least they have a vision, and they're trying to see it through, which I appreciate. I felt like even Discovery season 1, because they were still making that show while it was airing, like when it first debuted, and you can tell that part in the show where Discovery kind of changes. Like they kind of like, oh, we have to like put band-aids on all these things that the fans are complaining about, right? And I think in the case of Picard, they just filmed it all together, and so that's not going to influence anything here, at least. So that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And my general feeling is this is the first season. We've all been through various Star Trek shows, and season 1 isn't necessarily indicative of what the series eventually grows to be. So, even Enterprise season 1 was garbage, but season 3 was a different show, and you can feel the maturity. So that's why I'm being extremely patient. I want to see the end result. That's why I still, believe in Discovery, because it's still finding its way.
Hey, I loved me some Pike. I mean, season 2 was incredibly entertaining. Yeah, there was some like stupid stuff, but I enjoyed the hell out of that.
I really liked Pike too. It was everything. I thought everything to do with Spock and Burnham I found to be like the problem with that whole season. I didn't need any of that. I didn't want it. It's and especially that final scene with them talking to each other. But like it's like, oh my!
I have not finished Discovery season 2.
Okay, I won't spoil it. But,
it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like I kind of felt like the season was a wash in terms of like me caring about the entire like arc of it. I enjoy the character moments more so than the actual plotting, which is I kind of wish Discovery was a episodic show as opposed to a show with this season long arcs, because I feel like the characters and the actors are strong enough to kind of do it. I wish the writing was strong enough to kind of support them in that respect, but it is what it is. But as long as I care about the characters, there's always an opportunity for them to make me care more about the show and improve the show. So bring on season 3. I'll I'll get some liquor, and I'll make it through the rest of season 2, and I'll be there right in the fall when, if they continue. So same thing with Picard. I'm enjoying it, but once again, I will feel better once I look back and see where we are and take note of where we've gone to.
Hmm.
Yeah, well said.
Sit back and allow yourself to be entertained.
Yes.
Insert quote here. All right, guys. Any final thoughts? We'll be going for an hour and a half. So and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great. I want to get you guys back on soon. This has been a great discussion. I know you two had never talked to each other before, so I know that's a bit.
Nice talking to you. Oh,
yeah.
Nice talking
talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Nice talking to you.
Yeah.
I feel I'm like the Dr. Pulowski. I'll disappear for another 6 years and then referenced again.
Just reference quietly one day. Yeah.
I did a Discovery podcast too. Remember, Dave?
Yeah, you were on a Discovery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so me and Jaemeel were doing podcasts like in 2013 initially.
Wow.
Right? So we were, but that was more like retrospect. There was no like new Star Trek at the time, other than I guess Into Darkness, which we don't need to get into. So it's
horrifying.
Yeah,
I did like Beyond though.
Yeah, Beyond was good.
I like Beyond. A lot of people say it was boring, but I'll take boring over.
I enjoyed it. Hey, I watched the first. I watched the first JJ Trek probably 8 or 9 times, but I think that's probably because I was just so hungry.
Me too, though. That movie is incredibly rewatchable. Like it's fun. It's it's really that movie was done so well. They got 2 sequels out of it. Obviously, it was so good. And then with varying degrees of satisfaction, but. Yeah. So I think they sometimes get it right. Like Kurtzman, Orchie, these guys, like they get some things right, and some things I'm like, okay, like I don't know if I like that so much. So.
You know what? At this point, I just want more Star Trek content, and hoping that when we get more content, we have different voices in the room to tell stories. I kind of would love to see Ron Moore take another crack at it. But once again, some of these people just felt so burned way back when that they want nothing to do, and they've moved on. So I don't know what Star Trek is going to eventually look like in 10, 15 years. So it could be where Star Wars is. And, thankfully they have television to kind of fall back on to kind of figure themselves out. So let's give Star Trek a chance. Let it fail where it does, and hope that they kind of brush themselves off and learn from their mistake. The merger will help things out again, so they don't have to kind of make themselves a little bit different. They can kind of invoke their past again. But let's see.
Yeah, I think that you're definitely right on the money there. That there's just a lot of times where Star Trek sort of needs to find its way. You watch any of those first 2 seasons of almost all the shows, except for original series. They're not as strong as what they became. They figured it out. They figured out how to work with these characters. They figured out what people like about these characters and what kind of missions we kind of want to see them go on and what kind of stories we want to tell. And right now, between Discovery, Picard, what they've done with the movies over the last few years, they're still trying to, like, how do you tell Star Trek to this sort of a new generation and also keep the people like us who have been watching it forever like appeased. I don't know. It's a tough tightrope for sure.
Like, let me ask you a question. Do you feel that there's more hatred towards Star Trek right now than there is towards Star Wars? Of what it is right now?
I think that Star Wars just has a bigger fan base, and so therefore when they are unhappy, you hear it louder, right? It's just more people weighing in, more people think. But like Star Trek, I think is doing a better job than Star Wars is for sure. Like I like Mandalorian, but I didn't like really any of this last trilogy. And whereas on the Star Trek side of things, there's definitely even Discovery, which I do complain about a lot. I don't.
There,
I'm not down on
elements
it.
there.
Yeah, there's elements there. There's things I like there. There's yeah, and with the Star Wars stuff, this last Star Wars movie was just nonsense. Like it was just like whatever.
And I'm
Whatever.
not bringing up Star Wars just to like kind of trash them or anything like that. I just
Mhm.
mean in terms of direction, right? Where it seems like uh, Star Trek is willing to change it up and to see where things go. We're gonna try something new. Whereas, like, I'm just gonna say, for example, The Last Jedi seemed like it was gonna go in a totally different direction and kind of we're going to do things a little bit different. And then the immediate reaction was to fall back on nostalgia and
Mhm.
kind of retell old stories again. And that's kind of, I wouldn't want Star Trek to do that.
Yeah. Well, you also got to keep in mind that Star Wars has been developed as essentially the marketing arm of a toy franchise. Like, I mean, there are two different motivations there. I mean, I think Lucas probably went into making the first Star Wars movie as like a movie, but then he realized what he was going to make on toys, and then
Yeah,
everything
merchandise.
else,
Yeah.
yes, was just all about that. Whereas Trek, I would like to believe is a little more pure in its motivations, sort of like more on telling stories about the
Right.
human condition and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And Star
but
Trek, yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I just feel
Okay.
like Star Trek these days, especially these days, is just the Star Trek's made for adults, right? They're putting F-bombs in everything they can. Whereas Star Wars is still, like a kid's cartoon, a live action kids cartoon sort of thing that goes all over
Yes,
the
but
place.
we're getting lower decks.
We're getting lower decks, yeah. Which I'm excited and scared for that too, but like I think that's a good thing. Like
throw me something new. I'm
Yeah.
ready for it.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, yes, the merchandise arm allows the lights to continue rolling. With Star Wars, they can, have these grand budgets and everything like that. And I know that there was a lot of reaction to Star Trek lines for merchandise just being canceled because there was no value in it. Um, but as of what was revealed, I think a couple of months ago, is Discovery is going to get Funko Pops, and if you see in the background, huge Funko collector, and that is a kind of encouraging sign that there's at least value in the brand again, that other companies are willing to make merchandise. So that means that you can have companies like kind of invest and put money into it to tell the stories. You'd rather them be at a level where they can still have value in the brand, but the value in the brand is the storytelling that they're making, and that's where we want to be.
Well, my point on that was that the characters are developed as characters first and not as toy lines. Like Jar Jar Binks was not a character; he was a toy.
Yeah,
and
Right.
and that's the kind of thing. As long as the merchandise is supportive of the character and not character being created for merchandise.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main difference between the two. Because I mean, I like me some Star Trek toys occasionally too.
Yeah, I loved all the Playmates line, and a lot of that kind of stuff I was big into that, and then that all went away. I think after Voyager, really, and then they could never, even when the Chris Pine, the J.J. Abrams movies were popular, they never sold toys. They never really, at least the first movie was well received. Like that just never sold well, and it's just that's not who seems to buy into it.
Beyond was the only one I believe that had a Funko line, and it pretty quickly was a huge loss. It went immediately to the bargain bin.
So that maybe tells you something too, and that's is this like in 20 years from now, will Star Trek still have the same following? I think so, because of streaming. I think people are still going to find next gen and shows like this on streaming, and they'll be pulled back in. But I think you also like have to think about it of like, yeah, give me something new, but also just play the song I want you to play. Like if I come to see your concert, don't play me all your new album. Like give me some of the hits again. Like
You gotta mix it up though. You gotta
mix it up. You gotta mix it. There's a balance.
So as long as Star Trek focuses on storytelling and characters, it will be everlasting. But if you're focusing on CG and action doesn't necessarily translate always throughout the years, but if you have like a Measure of a Man still plays today, as well as it did years ago, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's important, and that's where Star Trek will be everlasting, as opposed to whatever the newest hot sci-fi thing that's going to come and go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well said. Okay, guys, we
Great.
officially hit the 2-hour mark, so I am going to call it here. It's the longest one we've ever done. Thank you so much. We're excited for the next episode, or the next 2-part episode. We'll have you back on again soon. For those watching or listening on our audio version, make sure to subscribe, like, leave comments, even negative ones. We don't care. And leave, let us know if you have any questions or things you want us to focus on. Thank you, Jaemeel. Thank you, Tyrone. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.